This Los Angeles millionaire thought his affair would stay hidden forever until his pregnant wife walked in with a lawyer at a family meeting, holding divorce papers that weren't even real. What happened next left everyone in shock and changed their marriage forever. Before I begin the story, I'd like to say a quick prayer for you, my dear family. May your days be filled with peace, your heart with joy, and your steps guided by light. Amen. If you're happy to be here, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story. The Los Angeles skyline glittered like 1,000 scattered diamonds as twilight settled over the city. From the 28th floor of the Wilshire Grand, the view was breathtaking. The ocean horizon blushed with the last remnants of sunset, while the city below pulsed with neon and headlights. Inside the penthouse, everything gleamed as well. Italian marble floors reflected the glow of designer light fixtures. A baby grand piano sat untouched in a corner, and contemporary art filled the walls like a private gallery. This was the home of Marcus Caldwell, 38 years old, self-made millionaire, and by all outward accounts, a man who had it all. On magazine covers, he was LA's visionary entrepreneur, a black man who had risen from the gritty edges of South Central to command respect in Beverly Hills boardrooms. His clothing line had exploded into a global lifestyle brand. His face was known to the press, and his voice carried weight in city politics. But the detail people admired most was his perfect family. He was married to Isabel, glowing radiant, and 7 months pregnant with their first child. To the public, they were flawless. Photographers captured them walking hand in hand down Rodeo Drive, her in flowing maternity dresses, him in custom-tailored suits. Social media loved them, Caldwell goals. Their marriage was painted as a fairy tale, the dream every couple aspired to live. But fairy tales had shadows, and within the mansion, Marcus was not always the man the world imagined. The evening's dinner had been carefully staged. Isabel had spent hours working with their housekeeper to make Marcus's favorite, roasted duck with blackberry glaze, truffle potatoes, and a light salad drizzled with citrus vinaigrette. The dining room glowed with soft candlelight, the table set with crystal and gold-rimmed plates. She wanted it to be special. She wanted him to see how much she cared, how much she believed in the future they were building together. But Marcus didn't come home until nearly 10. His excuse when he finally walked in loosened tie, cologne mingled with something faintly floral that wasn't hers, was the meeting ran late. You know how it is with investors. He kissed her cheek distractedly, not noticing how stiffly she sat or how the corners of her smile trembled. Dinner had gone cold 2 hours ago. Isabel quietly reheated it in the oven while Marcus took a call on the balcony. His deep voice lowered in a tone that wasn't businesslike at all. Softer, almost coaxing. She listened from the kitchen, her hand gently resting on the curve of her swollen belly. Their daughter shifted within her, as if sensing her mother's unease. Isabel's chest tightened. She didn't want to believe it. Not Marcus, not her husband, not the man who had promised her the world when he slid that diamond ring onto her finger. But the signs were there. Isabel hadn't always lived in mansions or worn designer gowns. She grew up in East Los Angeles, the daughter of a seamstress who worked double shifts just to keep food on the table. Her world had been hand-me-downs and church bake sales until college, where she majored in social work and dreamed of making a difference for children like herself. She met Marcus at a charity gala. He had been magnetic that night. Sharp suit, brilliant smile, telling a story of making it out with the kind of conviction that pulled people in. Isabel had been moved, not just by his success, but by the fire in his words. Unlike many of the wealthy men she'd seen, Marcus didn't seem shallow. He seemed purposeful. 2 years later, they were married in Malibu under a sky streaked with pink and gold. She had truly believed in the life they were building. Now 7 months pregnant, Isabel found herself clinging to fragments of that dream even as doubt gnawed at her. When Marcus returned inside, he poured himself a glass of whiskey, barely glancing at the meal she had laid out. "You didn't have to wait up," he said casually, loosening his cufflinks. "I wanted to," Isabel replied softly. "It's important to me, these moments." He gave a small, distracted smile. "You're sentimental." Her eyes dropped to her plate. Once he had loved that about her. Her tendency to find meaning in the smallest gestures. The way she poured love into ordinary things. Now it felt like he dismissed it like it was something naive. Dinner passed with forced conversation. Updates on the nursery, the baby kicking, his latest business meeting. But beneath Isabel's calm tone, her heart was sinking deeper. His attention drifted constantly. Eyes flicking to his phone, fingers tapping as if restless. When she cleared the plates, he kissed her forehead, murmured something about needing to prepare for tomorrow's meeting, and disappeared into his office. The door closed with a finality that echoed through the silent penthouse. Isabel stood alone in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she held the dish towel. She whispered to the child within her, "I won't let him break us. Not you. Not me." Marcus's office was his sanctuary, his kingdom. Shelves of business books and rare whiskeys lined the walls. But on the desk sat something far more dangerous than ledgers or contracts. His phone buzzed again, lighting up with a message. "Miss you already. Last night was unforgettable." Marcus exhaled heavily, running a hand over his face. He knew better. He knew the risk. But the thrill, the escape, the way his mistress made him feel, alive, wanted, free of the pressure of perfection. It had hooked him. The affair had started innocently enough. A networking event, a glass of champagne, laughter with a woman who seemed to see the man beneath the empire. He hadn't meant for it to spiral. But secrecy had a way of intoxicating. And soon, the double life was in full swing. He told himself Isabel didn't need to know, that it was just a phase, that once the baby came, he would put it all behind him. But lies always leave traces, and Isabel was already seeing the shadows he thought he had hidden. The next morning, Isabel stood before the mirror in their bedroom, slipping into a soft ivory dress that draped over her pregnant belly. She studied her reflection, the faint lines of worry etched at the corners of her eyes, the weariness she tried to mask with makeup. She whispered to herself the same thing her mother had often told her. A strong woman carries both her crown and her scars. As she placed a hand on her stomach, determination flickered through her. If Marcus was hiding something, she would find out, not to destroy him, but to force him to see what he was risking. This wasn't just about her marriage. It was about their child, their future. The fairy tale image might still fool Los Angeles, but inside their mansion, a storm was beginning to gather, one that would break in ways Marcus could never predict. And Isabel was no longer the naive young woman who believed love alone could conquer betrayal. She was preparing for a different kind of battle, a battle of truth, a battle of the heart. The city of Los Angeles never truly slept. Even past midnight, its pulse beat steady. Neon signs buzzing outside dimly lit bars, late-night diners humming with chatter, and endless traffic crawling along the freeways like glowing veins. For Marcus Caldwell, however, the city came alive in far more private ways. He pulled his sleek black Mercedes into the underground garage of a high-rise apartment complex in West Hollywood. The penthouse here wasn't in his name. It wasn't in his company's records either. It was leased under a holding company, a shell that guaranteed anonymity. Few people knew about it, and Isabel certainly wasn't one of them. Inside the elevator, Marcus loosened his tie, straightened his jacket, and checked his reflection in the mirrored wall. By day, he was the image of control, businessman, husband, soon-to-be father. But in these stolen nights, he became someone else entirely. Someone who didn't carry the weight of reputation or legacy. The elevator dinged softly as he stepped into the dimly lit hallway. The sound of heels clicking against the hardwood floor drew him toward the open door at the end. And there she was, Vanessa. Her silhouette was framed by the city lights pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. She wore a silk robe the color of deep wine, her hair cascading down her shoulders in loose waves. When she turned, her smile was slow, deliberate, the kind that told him he was exactly where he shouldn't be. "You're late," she teased, voice husky. Marcus exhaled, dropping his keys onto the marble counter. Investors. They never stopped talking. She arched an eyebrow, walking toward him with the grace of a woman who knew the effect she had. "And yet here you are. Couldn't stay away, could you?" He smirked, though inside there was a knot of tension he tried not to acknowledge. "You make it hard to." When she leaned in, their lips met, a kiss electric, dangerous, forbidden. For Marcus, it was like inhaling a drug. Every touch stripped away his role as husband, as father-to-be, as the man carrying the image of perfection. With Vanessa, there were no expectations, no cameras, no carefully curated family portrait. Only desire, raw and unfiltered. Hours later, Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, shirt half unbuttoned, staring at the city through the glass. Vanessa curled against him, her laughter still lingering in the room. She reached for her glass of wine, sipping slowly before setting it down on the nightstand. "You live two lives," she said softly, tracing a finger along his arm. "Doesn't it exhaust you?" He gave a short laugh. "It's manageable." "Manageable," she repeated, her eyes glinting. "You know it won't stay that way forever. Secrets have a funny way of spilling." Her words made his chest tighten. He didn't want to think about Isabel, about the baby, about the home he would return to in just a few hours. This apartment was supposed to be his escape, not a reminder of consequences. So he kissed Vanessa again, as if silencing the voice of reason. But her words stayed lodged in his mind long after he left. Meanwhile, across town, Isabel lay awake in their king-size bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above her. The clock read 2:17 a.m. Marcus still wasn't home. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silent. She had resisted the urge to call him. How many times had she told herself it was just business, that late nights were part of being married to a man like Marcus? But tonight, the unease was sharper. A mother's instinct, perhaps, or maybe a wife's. She reached for the small leather-bound journal she kept hidden in the drawer of her nightstand. Flipping it open, she wrote the date in neat script, then began. Another night alone, another excuse. The food grows cold. The silence grows louder. I don't want to believe he's lying to me, but I feel it in my bones. He is not mine alone anymore. God, if I'm wrong, forgive me. But if I'm right, give me the strength to face it. Her hand trembled as she closed the journal. A single tear rolled down her cheek, landing on the fabric of her pillow. She brushed it away quickly, unwilling to cry for a man who didn't even realize the storm he was creating. Morning light brought no answers, only routine. Marcus returned just before dawn, slipping into bed beside her as if nothing had happened. Isabel pretended to be asleep, her breathing steady, though inside her heart pounded. She could smell faint perfume on his clothes, not hers. She could sense the guilt he thought he concealed. When the alarm finally buzzed at 7 a.m., Marcus rose with practiced ease, showered, dressed in his usual crisp suit, and kissed her forehead on his way out. "Big day," he said, grabbing his briefcase. "I'll be late tonight, don't wait up." Isabel forced a smile. Of course. The door closed behind him, and her expression collapsed into sorrow. She touched her belly, whispering, "We'll be okay. I promise you." At his downtown office, Marcus tried to bury himself in spreadsheets and meetings, but Vanessa's words echoed relentlessly. Secrets have a funny way of spilling. He snapped at his assistant, barked orders at his team, and spent longer than usual nursing a scotch in his private office after hours. For the first time in months, The thrill of the affair didn't soothe him. Instead, it left a bitter aftertaste, guilt mixed with fear. Still, when Vanessa's name lit up his phone that evening, he answered. "Come over," she whispered. And he went. Back at home, Isabel sat with her mother on the patio, the evening air warm and filled with the scent of jasmine. "Marcus works too much," her mother said gently, watching her knit a tiny baby blanket. "But he loves you, I say. Don't let suspicion steal your peace." Isabel's throat tightened. She wanted to believe that. She wanted to cling to the picture-perfect marriage her mother admired so much. But deep down she knew the distance wasn't just about work. It was about choice. Her husband had chosen someone else, at least for now. And though she said nothing to her mother, Isabel began to form a choice of her own. Marcus's two lives were colliding, though he couldn't see it yet. The more he tried to keep them separate, the more tangled they became. Every lie he told Isabel carved another crack in the foundation of their marriage. Every night spent in Vanessa's arms made him blind to the storm he was brewing. And yet, he convinced himself he had control, that Isabel would never suspect, that his empire and his family would remain untouchable. But Los Angeles had a way of exposing secrets, and Isabel Caldwell was no fool. The woman the world saw as delicate and glowing with pregnancy was quietly preparing herself, not for divorce, not yet, for truth. The Caldwell mansion stood proudly on the hills of Bel Air, a fortress of glass and stone with sweeping views of Los Angeles. To the world outside, it symbolized success, the kind that only a select few could ever dream of. To Isabel, however, its vast halls had begun to echo with something else: loneliness. The staff came and went quietly. The chefs prepared lavish meals. Marcus rarely ate at home. The cleaners dusted the grand piano Marcus never touched. Even the nursery, painted soft cream, furnished with custom woodwork, adorned with delicate baby clothes, seemed to sit in silence, waiting for joy that felt further away by the day. Isabel walked through it all with her hands resting protectively on her stomach. The baby kicked gently, reminding her she wasn't alone, even when Marcus's absences made her feel abandoned. One afternoon, she found herself in Marcus's study. The room smelled faintly of leather and old books, with shelves lined with business journals and awards. She rarely went inside. Marcus liked to keep it private, his sanctuary. But today something caught her eye. A cufflink. Not just any cufflink. A gold one, engraved with Marcus's initials. It wasn't unusual for him to leave things lying around, but this one was on the floor, near the desk, half hidden under the rug. Isabel bent to pick it up, frowning. When had Marcus worn these last? She couldn't remember. She slipped it into her pocket, a small but nagging puzzle piece she didn't know where to place yet. Later that evening, when Marcus came home, she set dinner for two: grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, his favorite Pinot Noir. She waited and waited. At 10:45 p.m., she texted him. "Everything okay?" No reply. At 1:17 a.m., she heard the faint sound of his key in the door. She stayed still in bed as Marcus crept in, showered quickly, and slid under the sheets beside her. His cologne masked something sharper: perfume. Not hers. Her chest tightened. The next morning, she tested him. "Marcus," she said casually over breakfast, "did you lose a cufflink? I found one in your study." For just a second, he froze. It was barely noticeable, but Isabel saw it. His hand paused on the coffee cup. His jaw stiffened before he forced a chuckle. "Oh yes, must have dropped it while working late. Thanks for finding it." He leaned over to kiss her cheek, as if nothing were wrong. But Isabel wasn't convinced. She began noticing other things. Marcus's phone, always locked and face down. The sudden urgency of late-night meetings that no assistant ever seemed to know about. The way his eyes flickered away whenever she asked how his day had gone. One evening, she decided to press further. "You're working a lot these days," she said, keeping her voice light. "Is everything all right at the company?" Marcus didn't miss a beat. "Everything's fine. Expansion talks, new investors. Just temporary stress." "Investors keep you out until 2 in the morning?" The air thickened. Marcus gave her a sharp look, quick, but cutting. Then he softened, forcing a smile. "You worry too much, I say. Focus on the baby. Leave the business to me." She nodded slowly, but inside, her doubts grew roots. At her next prenatal appointment, Isabel sat in the waiting room, watching other couples. Husbands holding their wives' hands, smiling at the ultrasound screens, whispering excitedly about names and baby clothes. She sat alone. When the doctor placed a cold gel on her stomach and the screen lit up with the image of her child, tears pricked her eyes. The tiny heartbeat thudded steadily. A miracle of life. But Marcus wasn't there to see it. As she drove home, Isabel made a silent vow. Her child would not grow up in a home of lies. If Marcus was betraying them, she needed to know for sure. Meanwhile, Marcus's double life was fraying at the edges. Vanessa had grown bolder. No longer content with stolen nights, she began calling during the day, sending photos, reminding him of the risks he was taking. "You can't hide forever," she told him one night, sprawled across the penthouse bed. "What happens when your wife starts asking the right questions?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. "She won't. She trusts me." Vanessa smirked, sipping her wine. "Trust is fragile, darling. All it takes is one crack." Her words struck him harder than he admitted. The crack came sooner than he expected. One evening, Marcus returned home earlier than usual. He found Isabel in the living room, sorting through a stack of papers on the coffee table. His chest tightened when he saw what they were: credit card statements. "Why are you looking at those?" he asked, voice sharp. Isabel glanced up, calm but steady. "Because the charges don't make sense. Dinners for 2 in Beverly Hills. Hotel bookings. Jewelry stores." Marcus's face darkened. "Are you spying on me now?" "I'm trying to understand," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Tell me I'm wrong, Marcus. Tell me all of this is business." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Marcus laughed, too loudly, too dismissively. "I say you're overthinking. Clients, investors, you wouldn't understand. Do you want me to bring you into every detail of my work?" Isabel swallowed, her heart aching. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to silence the doubt clawing at her chest. But his tone wasn't the voice of an innocent man. It was the voice of someone hiding something. That night, Isabel cried quietly into her pillow, one hand on her belly. Her tears weren't just for herself. They were for the future of her child, for the family slipping through her fingers. But she also felt something else rising inside her. Resolve. If Marcus wouldn't give her the truth, she would find it herself. The cracks in their marriage were no longer invisible. They were spreading, jagged and dangerous, threatening to shatter everything they had built. And while Marcus thought he still held control, Isabel was already stepping into a new role. She was no longer just a wife waiting in silence. She was a woman preparing for answers. And when she got them, she would be ready. The golden morning light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Caldwell mansion. But Isabel felt no warmth in it. She sat at the breakfast table, her cup of chamomile tea cooling untouched, her mind running like an engine that refused to shut off. For weeks, she had been piecing together fragments of Marcus's behavior. The late nights, the unexplained receipts, the strange perfume that clung faintly to his clothes. None of it was proof, not yet, but it was enough to set her heart on edge. And now, she was done doubting herself. If Marcus wouldn't hand her the truth, she would dig it out herself. That afternoon, Isabel called her childhood friend, Clarissa. Clarissa had always been bold, sharp, the kind of woman who asked the questions others were afraid to voice. They met at a small cafe in Brentwood, tucked away from the prying eyes of high society. Isabel wore oversized sunglasses and a loose dress that skimmed her baby bump, hoping to blend in. "You sounded urgent," Clarissa said, as she slid into the booth opposite her. Isabel leaned forward, her voice low. "I think Marcus is having an affair." Clarissa's eyes widened, then narrowed with anger. "That bastard." "I don't have proof," Isabel said quickly. "Not yet, but I need to know. I can't bring this baby into a world built on lies." Clarissa reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Then let's find out. Whatever it takes." The first step was subtle. Isabel began paying attention to Marcus's calendar. He guarded it closely, but she noticed patterns. Late meetings every Tuesday and Thursday, dinners that ran past midnight, unexplained weekends away. She also remembered the name she had once overheard during a hushed phone call. Vanessa. It was nothing concrete, until one Thursday evening when Marcus kissed her cheek, murmured, "Don't wait up," and left in his tailored navy suit. Instead of sitting in silence at home, Isabel called Clarissa. "He just left," she whispered. "Follow him." Clarissa, who had parked a block away, started her car. "Consider it done." 2 hours later, Clarissa called back. Isabel's stomach twisted as she answered. "He's at a high-rise in West Hollywood," Clarissa reported. "Not a business dinner. I saw him go up with a woman, tall, brunette, dressed like she knew she was being seen." Isabel's breath caught. Her worst fear spoken aloud. "Are you sure?" "Positive. I stayed long enough to see them on the balcony together." "Isabel, I'm so sorry." Tears stung her eyes, but Isabel swallowed them back. She could not afford to fall apart. Not now. "Thank you, Clarissa," she whispered. "I needed to know." The following days were a blur. Isabel moved through her routines mechanically. Doctor appointments, charity events, preparing the nursery, all while carrying the crushing weight of betrayal. Marcus, oblivious, continued his charade. He kissed her forehead in the morning, sent flowers from the office, and told her he was working late almost every night. Each lie felt like a knife twisting deeper. But Isabel no longer saw herself as powerless. She had information now, and with information came strategy. One evening, Marcus arrived home unusually early. Isabel was in the nursery, folding tiny clothes into drawers. He leaned in the doorway, watching her with a smile that might have seemed genuine once, but now looked like a mask. "You've done wonders in here," he said softly. "Our baby's going to be spoiled." Isabel forced a smile. "It's easy to prepare when I'm always alone." Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," she replied, her tone cool. "Just an observation." He hesitated, then crossed the room to kiss her cheek, but she didn't lean into it. Instead, she placed another folded onesie in the drawer, her movements precise, controlled. Inside, she was trembling. Later that night, Isabel opened her journal again. Her handwriting was steady, but her words burned across the page. "It's true. He's with someone else. I know her name. I know where. I can't confront him yet. Not like this. But I will. God help me, I will. And when I do, he will never forget it." She closed the journal and slipped it back into the drawer, her resolve hardening. Meanwhile, Marcus's world was shifting, though he didn't realize it. At the office, his assistant noticed his temper growing shorter. Investors whispered about his distracted performance in meetings. His empire, polished and gleaming on the outside, was beginning to show hairline cracks. And Vanessa, once content with being a secret, was growing restless. One evening in the penthouse, she confronted him. "You think you can keep stringing me along?" she asked, pacing across the room in her heels. "I'm not some hidden mistress you can tuck away." Marcus sighed, running a hand down his face. "Vanessa, you knew what this was." "No," she snapped. "I thought it would be more by now. I thought you'd leave her." He stiffened. "Isabel's pregnant." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. And you're not the first man to start over. Don't act like your marriage is perfect. Marcus turned away, staring out at the city lights. For the first time, he wondered if he had lost control. Back in Bel Air, Isabel was quietly building her plan. She reached out to a discreet lawyer recommended by Clarissa, a woman named Evelyn Grant, known in high circles for handling high-profile marital cases. They met in a private office downtown, Isabel wearing a scarf and sunglasses to conceal her identity. "I'm not filing yet," Isabel explained, her voice firm. "I just need options. Information. Leverage?" Evelyn nodded, her sharp eyes assessing. "You want to see how he reacts if he believes you're serious about leaving?" "Exactly," Isabel said. "I need to know if he'll finally take responsibility, if he'll change." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, folding her hands. "Then we'll prepare. Fake divorce papers, drawn carefully enough to look real, but reversible if needed. We'll time it right, during a moment he won't expect. It will test him." Isabel exhaled, relief mingling with fear. "That's what I need. A test. One he can't fake his way out of." For the first time in weeks, Isabel felt like she was reclaiming control. The betrayal still burned, but she was no longer trapped in silence. Her plan was forming, and Marcus, so sure of his secrecy, had no idea that the woman he thought was blind was quietly preparing the stage. The cracks in the mansion had spread wide now. Trust was gone. Lies filled the air like smoke. But the fire hadn't erupted yet. That moment was coming. And when it did, Marcus Caldwell would face a reckoning he could never have imagined. Marcus Caldwell had built his fortune on control. Control of his boardroom, control of his employees, control of the image he projected to the world. But at home, with a quiet echoed, too loud, and Isabel's eyes followed him with unreadable calm. He felt that control slipping through his fingers. He didn't know why. Isabel never confronted him directly, never accused, never raised her voice. Yet somehow, her silence was louder than any scream could have been. And Marcus hated silence. That week, Isabel moved with deliberate precision. To Marcus, it might have looked like she was simply preoccupied with baby preparations. But in truth, she was carefully orchestrating the next stage of her plan. Her meetings with Evelyn Grant became more frequent. The lawyer, discreet as ever, prepared the documents. Divorce papers drafted with care, complete with settlement terms and custody arrangements. The papers weren't binding. They were decoys designed for one purpose: to force Marcus to look at what his choices had cost. "You'll need to pick the moment carefully," Evelyn advised during one of their sessions. Her office smelled faintly of cedar and leather. The bookshelves lined with tomes on family law. Too early and he'll dismiss it as empty drama. Too late, and he may already have convinced himself he can live without you. Isabel nodded, her hand resting instinctively on her growing stomach. "I want him to feel the weight of what he's done. I want him to see it written out not just in my words, but in legal language. Cold, final." Evelyn's sharp eyes softened for a moment. "And if he doesn't repent? If he doubles down?" Isabel hesitated, her throat tightening. "Then maybe that will be my answer." Meanwhile, Marcus's mistress was growing bolder. Vanessa began leaving her perfume lingering in his car, texting him at odd hours, pushing for more of his time. The thrill of secrecy had lost its luster for her. She wanted permanence. One evening, as Marcus adjusted his tie in her penthouse, Vanessa leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Do you ever plan on telling her?" she asked coolly. Marcus paused, his reflection staring back at him. "Telling Isabel what? That you're not hers anymore, that you've moved on. She's carrying your child, yes, but you don't love her, Marcus. Not the way you love me." He turned slowly, his jaw tight. "Careful, Vanessa. Don't put words in my mouth." Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "You think you can live in both worlds forever?" You'll lose both if you're not careful. The words followed him long after he left her penthouse. Back in Bel Air, Isabel was playing a different game. She had begun to drop subtle hints at home, remarks about what stability really means, about the importance of honesty before baby arrives. Marcus brushed them off with half-hearted reassurances, but deep inside, unease was blooming. One evening, she asked him over dinner, "Do you believe people can change, Marcus?" He looked up from his plate, caught off guard. Change. Yes. When they've made mistakes. When they've hurt the ones they claim to love. His fork froze midway. "Isabel, is there something you're not telling me?" She smiled faintly, sipping her water. "Funny. I was going to ask you the same thing." Marcus stared at her, his pulse quickening. But before he could respond, she shifted the conversation back to nursery colors, leaving him unsettled. The breaking point came the following week. Evelyn delivered the finalized fake divorce papers to Isabel in a discreet black folder. Isabel placed it carefully in her desk drawer, her hands trembling not with fear, but with anticipation. The stage was set. Now, it was only a matter of timing. That Saturday, Isabel invited Marcus to what she called a family planning meeting. "We need to talk seriously about the future," she said smoothly, her expression unreadable. "I've arranged for us to sit down formally." Marcus frowned. "Formally? What do you mean?" "You'll see," she replied. When the day arrived, Marcus walked into the sitting room expecting discussions about nurseries, nannies, maybe estate planning. Instead, he found Isabel seated beside a poised woman in a tailored navy suit. "Marcus," Isabel said calmly, "this is Evelyn Grant, my attorney." For the first time in years, Marcus Caldwell, the man who commanded boardrooms without flinching, felt his throat go dry. The room fell silent except for the faint ticking of the grandfather clock. "Your attorney?" he repeated, incredulous. "Yes," Isabel said. Her tone was cool, her eyes unwavering. "Because I can't continue like this. Not with lies. Not with betrayal. So I've made a decision." Evelyn slid the folder across the coffee table. "Mr. Caldwell, these are divorce papers. Isabel has instructed me to prepare them. We'd like you to review them." Marcus's hands trembled as he picked up the folder. He flipped through the pages. Division of assets, custody of the unborn child, spousal support. The legal coldness of it all pierced him like ice. "Isabel," he stammered, "this isn't necessary. Whatever you think." "I don't think, Marcus," she cut in sharply. I know where you've been. I know who you've been with." His heart slammed in his chest. "Who told you?" Her lips curved into a sad, knowing smile. "You did. With every late night. With every lie. With every perfume-scented suit." For the first time in his life, Marcus Caldwell had no script. He wasn't in control. The woman he thought would never challenge him had just laid bare the reality he had tried so hard to hide. And staring at the documents, seeing his empire split in two, imagining a life where his child grew up without him, something inside him cracked. The mask slipped. "Isabel," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I've made mistakes. God, I've made mistakes. But don't do this. Don't end us." Tears burned her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "Not yet. That depends, Marcus. Are you finally ready to be honest? Or should we let these papers speak for us?" For the first time, Marcus Caldwell wasn't the millionaire, the mogul, the untouchable. He was just a man on the verge of losing everything. And Isabel, strong and steady, held all the power. Marcus sat frozen in the sitting room, the divorce papers heavy in his lap. The silence stretched long, thick, suffocating. He had faced hostile boards, cutthroat negotiations, billion-dollar deals. Yet nothing in his life had ever rattled him like this moment. Isabel's eyes were on him, steady, unflinching. Evelyn's presence beside her only made the moment sharper, more real. "Say something, Marcus," Isabel urged finally, her voice low but firm. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The truth, his truth, was ugly, and saying it aloud meant destroying the last thread of control he had left. Finally, he set the papers down, his hands trembling. "You're right," he admitted, his voice rough. "I've lied. I've betrayed you." The words hung in the air, stark and undeniable. Isabel swallowed hard, her throat aching. She had wanted honesty, and now she had it. But it didn't feel victorious. It felt like standing in the middle of a battlefield, the smoke still heavy, the wound still bleeding. "Why, Marcus?" she whispered. "Why wasn't I enough?" Marcus flinched. "It wasn't about you. God, Isabel, it was never about you. It was about me, my ego, my greed, my emptiness. I thought I could fill it by stepping outside what we had. I was wrong." Isabel looked down at her hands, her fingers resting protectively over her stomach. "And now you think words will fix it?" Marcus shook his head. "No, I don't expect forgiveness overnight. But I can't lose you. I can't lose our child. If these papers go through, Isabel, my life means nothing." Evelyn watched him carefully, her sharp lawyer's instinct reading every flicker of his expression. She leaned slightly toward Isabel, speaking quietly but firmly. "Remember, remorse can sound convincing, but sincerity is proven by actions, not speeches." Marcus's eyes darted between them, desperation etched across his features. "Test me then. Watch me. Put me through hell if you have to. Just don't end us yet." Isabel met Evelyn's gaze, then turned back to Marcus. "That's exactly what I planned to do." The days that followed were tense, strained, fragile. For the first time, Marcus canceled his late-night meetings. He came home early, sat at the dinner table, asked about the baby, offered to rub Isabel's swollen ankles. He was present physically, but Isabel's trust had been shattered, and she couldn't simply stitch it back together because he had decided to show up. One evening, as they sat on the balcony overlooking Los Angeles, Marcus reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't soften either. "I know it's not enough," he said quietly, "but I'm trying." "Trying isn't the same as changing," Isabel replied, her eyes fixed on the glittering skyline. Marcus nodded slowly, accepting the weight of her words. Meanwhile, Vanessa was spiraling. She called him, texted him, left messages laced with anger and bitterness. When he stopped answering, she showed up at his office. "You think you can just disappear?" she hissed, cornering him outside his building. "After everything you promised me?" Marcus glanced around, panic flickering across his face. "Not here, Vanessa. Please." But Vanessa wasn't deterred. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. That wife of yours will never forgive you. And when she throws you out, don't come crawling back to me." Her words cut deep, not because he believed them, but because they forced him to confront the chaos he had created. For the first time, Marcus truly saw the destruction his double life had wrought. At home, Isabel watched him carefully. She noted the way he avoided his phone when it buzzed late at night, the way his smile no longer reached his eyes, the way he seemed smaller, somehow. One afternoon, she confided in Evelyn during a follow-up meeting. "He says he's changed," Isabel murmured. "And he acts different, I'll admit that. But part of me wonders if it's fear of losing everything, not love for me, that's driving him." Evelyn nodded thoughtfully. "That's why we test. A man under pressure will reveal his true self. If it's genuine, he'll keep fighting for you, even when it's hard. If it's not, he'll fall back into old patterns." Isabel exhaled, her hand on her belly. "I want to believe him. I do. For our child, I want to believe there's hope." Evelyn placed a steady hand on hers. "Then let's see if his actions match his words." The test began small. Isabel asked Marcus to cut ties completely. Every trace of Vanessa erased. His number changed. His office instructed to deny her access. His schedule cleared of unnecessary late-night meetings. To her surprise, Marcus complied. He made calls in front of her, deleted messages while she watched, even went so far as to block Vanessa from every platform. "I'm done with her," he said firmly one evening, handing her his phone as if offering proof. "You're the only woman who matters to me." But Isabel wasn't ready to hand back her heart so easily. "Words, Marcus," she reminded him softly. "They're easy. Show me." The following weeks tested both of them. Marcus devoted himself to Isabel. Doctor visits, nursery shopping, even attending birthing classes he would have once scoffed at. Isabel allowed him near, but kept a guarded distance. Sometimes late at night, when she watched him asleep beside her, his hand resting on her belly as though trying to connect with the child inside, she felt her resolve waver. Could this be real? Was the man she once loved, the man she had dreamed of building a family with, finally breaking through the shell of ego and greed? The cracks in Marcus's armor widened further when Evelyn delivered a final condition. "Trust isn't rebuilt by erasing the past," she said during their joint meeting. "It's rebuilt by accountability. Marcus, you will attend counseling with Isabel. You will stand before her not as a millionaire, but as a husband willing to bear his flaws." Marcus bristled at first. The idea of therapy felt humiliating, unnecessary. But when he saw the flicker of hope in Isabel's eyes, something inside him softened. "If that's what it takes," he said quietly, "I'll do it." For Isabel, it wasn't about the paperwork anymore. It was about watching Marcus shed his armor layer by painful layer. And for the first time since the storm began, she felt a glimmer of something she thought was gone forever. Possibility. The therapy office smelled faintly of lavender and cedarwood, an intentional choice by the counselor to create calm in a space that often housed storms. Isabel sat on the edge of the cream-colored sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Marcus sat beside her, shoulders tense, his tailored suit seeming almost out of place against the soft decor. Dr. Marissa Cole, a seasoned marriage counselor with kind yet piercing eyes, folded her hands over her notebook. "So," she began, her voice calm, steady, measured, "why are we here today?" Isabel hesitated, then glanced at Marcus. She wanted him to speak first. Marcus cleared his throat, his voice rough. "Because I almost destroyed my marriage, and I don't want to lose it or her." Dr. Cole nodded, jotting something down. Then she turned to Isabel. "And you, Isabel? Why are you here?" Isabel's eyes brimmed with unshed tears. "Because I need to know if what he's showing me now is real, or if it's just fear. I can't build a life on fear." The sessions were grueling. Dr. Cole didn't allow Marcus to hide behind charm or half-answers. She asked direct questions. What drove you to seek another woman? What did you get from her that you couldn't seek from your wife? At first, Marcus fumbled, defensive. It wasn't about her. It was about the thrill, the attention. "Stop," Dr. Cole interrupted firmly. "That's an excuse. Dig deeper." Isabel sat silent, watching him squirm. Part of her wanted to look away. Another part needed to see him stripped bare. Marcus's jaw clenched, his eyes darting to the floor. "It was about power," he admitted finally. "Control. I built my empire by never being vulnerable, by always being the one who decided the terms. At home with Isabel, I felt seen, exposed, and instead of leaning into that, I ran." Isabel blinked, her throat tightening. Vulnerability. That was the last thing she expected him to say. Outside the sessions, the world tested them in harsher ways. One morning, as Marcus walked into his office, paparazzi cameras flashed. A tabloid had leaked photos of him and Vanessa from months ago. Intimate dinners, a weekend at a Malibu villa. The headline screamed, "Los Angeles millionaire's secret affair exposed, while wife is pregnant." By noon, Isabel's phone buzzed with texts from friends and acquaintances. "Are you okay? Did you know?" The humiliation was sharp, public, relentless. She sat on the sofa, her phone in her hand, the article glaring back at her. Marcus rushed home as soon as he heard. "Isabel, please." He reached for her, but she held up a hand. You told me it was over, she said quietly. But now the world knows. Do you realize what this does to me? To our child? Marcus's shoulders sagged. For once, he didn't try to defend himself. I can't erase what I did. But I swear, Isabel, I'll fight every day to prove I'm not that man anymore. Vanessa wasn't finished. When Marcus refused to answer her calls, she sent Isabel an email with screenshots of their private conversations, photos of gifts he'd given her, and even recordings of late-night phone calls. The message was venomous. You think he's yours? He was never yours. He'll crawl back to me like he always did. Isabel's hands shook as she read. The betrayal was vivid, alive again, like a reopened wound. She showed Marcus, her eyes blazing. Why should I believe anything you say? Marcus stared at the evidence, shame burning his face. But then he looked her in the eye, steadier than she expected. Because I'm not deleting this. I'm not hiding it. I'll hand you my phone, my account, my life, everything. If it means earning back your trust, I'll give you complete transparency. Isabel searched his face, waiting for even the slightest hint of deceit. But this time, she didn't see arrogance or denial. She saw a man stripped down, fighting to rebuild. The next therapy session was brutal. Marcus, Dr. Cole said, tapping her pen against her notebook, your wife has been humiliated publicly. Do you understand the weight of that? Not just the affair, but the shame of being the woman who has to endure it in the headlines. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. I do, and I hate myself for it. Self-hate won't heal your marriage, Dr. Cole said sharply. Actions will. Every day you wake up, you have a choice. Repeat the same patterns or live as a man worthy of the woman you married. Isabel's eyes stung. Those were the words she had longed for him to hear. Slowly, painfully, change began to take root. Marcus cut back on work, delegating more to his team. He showed up at every doctor's appointment, sitting in sterile waiting rooms without complaint. He began cooking dinner, poorly, but with effort. One night, Isabel found him in the nursery, painting the walls a soft shade of sage green. He had paint on his hands, his shirt, even in his hair. What are you doing? She asked, half laughing, half bewildered. He turned, a sheepish smile on his face. I wanted to surprise you. I figured the least I can do is help make a home for our child. For the first time in months, Isabel's chest warmed. It wasn't about money or grandeur or power. It was about effort, about humility. But the hardest test came one evening during another family gathering. Her parents were there. Evelyn was present. Even Marcus's younger brother attended. As dinner began, Isabel's father turned to Marcus. You've embarrassed my daughter, he said bluntly. You've dragged her name through the mud. Tell me, why should we, her family, believe you'll ever change? The room fell silent. All eyes were on Marcus. He could have launched into a polished speech. He could have listed his sacrifices, his efforts, his promises. Instead, he looked down at his plate, then back up at Isabel's father. You shouldn't believe me, he said simply. Not yet. Belief has to be earned. All I can do is keep showing up until Isabel decides whether I deserve it. Isabel's throat tightened. That humility, that willingness to stand in the fire without fighting back, was new. For the first time, she felt her heart soften. That night, as they lay in bed, Isabel whispered into the darkness, You're different. Marcus turned toward her, his hand finding hers under the covers. I'm trying to be. She was silent for a long moment, then added softly, Don't stop. The night the storm broke, Los Angeles was cloaked in rare rain. Thunder rolled across the city, a low growl that seemed to mirror the heaviness in Isabel's chest. She stood by the nursery window, watching the raindrops blur the glass. Behind her, Marcus paced, restless. For weeks, he had shown effort, therapy, transparency, time. Yet doubts clung stubbornly to her heart. Vanessa's venomous Words still echoed in her mind. The tabloids still whispered. The cracks in their foundation were mending. Yes, but were they strong enough to carry the weight of a future? "Talk to me, Isabel," Marcus said, stopping mid-step. His voice was low-strained. She turned, her hand resting on the curve of her belly. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." The words landed like a blade. Marcus flinched, but he didn't argue. Instead, he sank into the nursery's rocking chair, his head in his hands. "No," he murmured, "and I don't blame you." The silence stretched. Only the rain filled the room. Isabel wanted to say more, but her throat closed. Finally, Marcus lifted his head. His eyes glistened in the dim light. "Do you know what it feels like to realize the empire you built means nothing? That every deal, every dollar, every trophy, none of it matters when the person you love looks at you like a stranger." Isabel's lips trembled, but she held firm. "You chose this, Marcus. You gambled with us." He nodded, his voice breaking. "And I lost. God, Isabel, I lost. But please, please don't let that be the end of us." The next therapy session broke him further. Dr. Cole's office felt unusually heavy that day. She leaned forward, her gaze fixed on Marcus. "You've spoken of regret. You've spoken of fear. But tell me, have you spoken of shame? Because shame is different. Shame is the acknowledgement that what you did wasn't just wrong for your wife. It was wrong for who you claim to be." Marcus's throat tightened. His fists clenched on his knees. "I am ashamed," he said hoarsely. "Every time I look at her and see the hurt in her eyes, I hate myself more." "Then why haven't you fallen apart in front of her?" Dr. Cole pressed. "Why haven't you allowed her to see you stripped of all your power?" The words cracked something deep within him. He turned to Isabel, his voice trembling. "Because I didn't want you to see how weak I really am. I thought if I stayed strong, I could fix it. But the truth is, I'm broken, Isabel, and I don't know how to fix myself without you." Tears welled in Isabel's eyes unbidden. For the first time, she saw not the millionaire, not the husband who had betrayed her, but the man beneath, fragile, flawed, human. That night, the shattering became complete. Marcus came home late, not from work, but from driving aimlessly through the city. Isabel found him in the garage, sitting in the car with the engine off, his head resting against the steering wheel. She approached cautiously. "Marcus." He looked up, his face pale, his eyes hollow. "I don't deserve you." His voice was a whisper, raw and unguarded. "If you want to walk away, I'll sign those papers tomorrow. I'll give you everything. The house, the accounts, the company shares. Take it all. Just don't let our child grow up thinking I didn't care." Isabel's heart squeezed painfully. She had wanted remorse. She had wanted him to feel the weight of his betrayal. But now seeing him like this, stripped of arrogance, his ego shattered, she realized something unexpected. He did care, and he was terrified. Later in bed, she lay awake beside him. Marcus slept fitfully, his breaths uneven. She traced the outline of his hand with her finger, memories washing over her. Their first date at a small Italian restaurant. The night he proposed under 1,000 fairy lights. The day he held her when she miscarried their first pregnancy. There had been love, real love, buried now beneath scars and mistakes, but still there. Her eyes filled with tears. Could they rebuild? Could she trust him again? The answer didn't come in words, but in the steady thump of their unborn child pressing against her belly. Life was growing inside her. Maybe, just maybe, life could grow between them again too. The next family meeting was different. This time, Isabel's family asked fewer questions. They watched instead, noticing Marcus's humility, the way he deferred to Isabel, the way he didn't try to dominate the room. At one point, Isabel's mother pulled her aside. "He's not the same man," she whispered. "I don't know what you'll decide, but I think he's learning." Isabel glanced across the room at Marcus, who was listening intently to her father speak about responsibility. For once, he wasn't trying to prove himself. He was simply present. Her chest tightened. Maybe this was the man she had married, resurfacing at last. One evening, as they prepared for bed, Marcus turned to her suddenly. "I need to tell you something," he said. Isabel looked up, cautious. "What is it?" He exhaled slowly. Vanessa reached out again. "She offered to go to the press with more if I didn't pay her off." Isabel's stomach twisted. "And I didn't give her a cent," Marcus said firmly. "I told her she could burn me in the papers, drag my name through every headline. But I wouldn't betray you again by bargaining with her. If the world wants to know I was a fool, let them. I'd rather be humiliated than hide another lie from you." For the first time in months, Isabel's breath caught, not in anger, not in despair, but in something softer, something like hope. She didn't forgive him that night, not fully, but as she lay against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, she realized something had shifted. The man who once worshipped power was now willing to be powerless. And in that surrender, she finally saw the possibility of redemption. The Los Angeles skyline shimmered with neon and glass, but to Isabel, the city felt muted. The glittering lights, the endless traffic, the buzz of nightlife, all of it blurred against the storm still raging inside her heart. Marcus had been trying. He had broken down walls she never thought he would lower. He had chosen honesty over pride, humility over power. Yet even as she watched him struggle toward redemption, a question haunted her relentlessly. Was it enough? It was Dr. Cole who pushed them to the edge that week. Her office was quiet, softened by the hum of the small fountain in the corner. Isabel sat with her hands folded over her belly, the child inside shifting with tiny movements. Marcus sat beside her, shoulders taut, his gaze fixed on the floor. Dr. Cole leaned forward, her tone sharper than usual. "We've danced around the wound long enough. Today, we're going to face it directly. Isabel, tell Marcus what his betrayal cost you. Don't hold back. Don't soften it. He needs to hear it in your words." Isabel's throat tightened. For a moment, she thought she couldn't speak. Then the words poured out, raw and jagged. "You broke me, Marcus," she whispered. "You made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like the life we built together wasn't enough. Do you know what it's like to carry a child and wonder if the father even cares? To wake up at night and feel sick because the man sleeping next to you might be dreaming of someone else." Marcus flinched, but she continued, her voice gaining strength. "You stole my safety. You made every smile feel false, every promise feel hollow. You made me doubt myself, my worth, my beauty, my place in your life. And the worst part," her voice cracked, "you made me doubt the love I thought we had." Tears streamed down her cheeks, hot and unrelenting. "That's what you cost me, Marcus. Not just trust, not just peace. You cost me us." Marcus's eyes glistened, his jaw trembling. For a long time, he said nothing. Then his voice broke through, low and shaking. "You're right," he said. "Every word. I destroyed the one thing I swore I'd protect. I chose ego, temptation, selfishness. And in doing so, I shattered the only person who ever truly loved me." He turned to her fully, his face stripped of pride. "I can't take it back. I can't erase the nights you cried, or the moments you doubted yourself because of me. All I can do is stand here, broken, and tell you that I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that wants forgiveness as a prize. The kind of sorry that knows forgiveness might never come, and still begs for the chance to prove I'm worthy again." His hand trembled as he reached for hers. "Isabel, I love you. I have loved you since the day I saw you at that art gallery, standing in front of a painting no one else cared about. You've always been the center of my world, even when I was too blind and arrogant to act like it. If it takes a lifetime to rebuild what I've broken, then that's what I'll give. A lifetime." The room was silent except for Isabel's shaky breaths. Dr. Cole leaned back, her voice soft. Isabel, what do you hear in his words? She closed her eyes. What does she hear? For months, she had prepared herself for lies, excuses, deflections. But what she heard now was different. Not perfect, not polished, just human. I hear a man who finally knows what he lost, she whispered. Marcus bowed his head, his body trembling. For the first time since she had known him, Isabel realized. He wasn't just asking for forgiveness. He was surrendering. That evening at home, the reckoning continued. They sat in the living room, the city glowing through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Isabel curled on the couch, Marcus sitting across from her. Between them, the silence throbbed with unspoken tension. Finally, Isabel spoke. You said you'd give me a lifetime, but how do I know you won't falter again? Marcus inhaled deeply. Because I know what it feels like to live without your trust, and I will never survive it twice. She studied him, searching his face for cracks. What if I can't forgive you? What if this scar never fades? His voice was steady. Then I'll live with it. I'll spend the rest of my life being the husband and father you deserve, even if you never give me back the title of forgiven. For a long moment, she stared at him. The man who had once commanded boardrooms and dominated headlines now sat before her with no armor, no defense. Just a man willing to carry whatever burden she placed on him. Her heart ached, but beneath the ache, something else stirred. The faintest pulse of hope. The reckoning reached its peak a week later. During Sunday dinner with Isabel's family. The family had gathered again, the air thick with cautious energy. Her father watched Marcus like a hawk. Her mother fussed over Isabel, and her brothers exchanged wary glances. Halfway through the meal, Isabel's father set down his fork and said, Marcus, may I speak plainly? Marcus nodded. Please. You've hurt my daughter, her father said, his voice firm. You betrayed her trust, and by extension, all of us who love her. I want to believe you can change. But belief is earned, not demanded. So I'll ask you this. Why should we let you stay in her life? The room went still. All eyes turned to Marcus. He didn't flinch. He didn't rush. He simply placed his hand on the table, steadying himself, and said, Because I've already learned what life looks like without her, and it's unbearable. I don't deserve her forgiveness yet. I may never deserve it. But I will spend every day proving that I can be the man she thought I was, the man she and our child need. Not for my pride, not for appearances, but because losing her would mean losing the best part of myself. Isabel's mother's eyes softened. Her father studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. It wasn't approval, it wasn't acceptance, but it was acknowledgement. And for Marcus, that was enough. That night, after the family left, Isabel sat with Marcus on the couch. You spoke well, she said quietly. I spoke the truth, he replied. She turned to him, her eyes glistening. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you, but I'm starting to believe you might be ready to earn it. His throat tightened. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was the first step toward it. The crisp autumn air carried a gentleness Los Angeles rarely knew. For Isabel, it felt like a metaphor. The storm had raged, the skies had cracked open. But now, slowly, the season was shifting. Her belly had grown heavy with life. Every kick reminded her that time was short. Soon, their child would arrive. And with that arrival would come the question she had avoided for months. What kind of home would this baby be born into? One evening, as Marcus sat reviewing documents in a study, Isabel entered quietly. In her hands was a manila folder. He looked up, immediately sensing the weight in her expression. What is it? She placed the folder on the desk between them. Open it. Marcus hesitated, his heart hammering, then slid the papers out. His blood ran cold. Divorce papers. His name. Her name. The dissolution of marriage. Signed by Isabel. The air left his lungs. Isabel, his voice cracked. Is this what you want? Her eyes glistened, but her tone was steady. What I want is to know if you've truly changed. If you're ready to fight for us, even when you think it's too late. For a long moment, Marcus just stared at the papers. His empire had never scared him. His rivals had never broken him. But this piece of paper, stripped and bare. His hands trembled as he set the folder down. Slowly, he stood, moving around the desk until he was standing before her. If this is real, he whispered, then I'll sign it right now. Because I refuse to trap you in a marriage where you feel unsafe. I refuse to force you to stay with a man you cannot forgive. Tears slipped down Isabel's cheeks. Marcus dropped to his knees before her, resting his forehead against her belly. But if this is a test, if this is you asking whether I will fight, then hear me, Isabel. I will fight until my last breath. Not for the money, not for appearances. For you, for this child, for the chance to be the man I should have been all along. His voice cracked as he choked out the words. I love you, and even if you walk away tonight, even if you never speak my name again, I will love you for the rest of my life. Isabel's sobs broke the silence. She lifted the papers from the folder and tore them clean in half. Marcus's eyes widened. Disbelief etched across his face. They're fake, she whispered. My lawyer and I prepared them weeks ago. I needed to see how you'd respond, whether your remorse was real or just performance. The shredded papers fluttered to the floor like fallen leaves. Marcus rose to his feet, still stunned. And now, he asked softly. Isabel cupped his face, her hands trembling. Now I see, Marcus. Not the millionaire. Not the man who betrayed me. The man who was willing to give up everything if it meant setting me free. She kissed him then. The first true kiss they had shared in months. It was not desperate, not fiery. It was tender, healing, a bridge between their broken past and their uncertain future. The weeks that followed were different. Marcus was not perfect. He still stumbled, still battled the shadows of his ego. But every time he chose honesty. He chose transparency. He chose her. And Isabel, though scarred, began to let hope bloom again. One evening, as they painted the nursery together, Marcus awkwardly rolling pale yellow across the wall, Isabel laughing at the streaks he left, she realized something profound. Healing wasn't about erasing the pain. It was about writing a new story over the scars. When their daughter was born, the world shifted entirely. Marcus held a tiny bundle in his arms, tears streaming freely down his face. She's perfect, he whispered. Isabel watched him, her heart swelling. For the first time in a long time, she believed him. And as they left the hospital together, their daughter nestled safely between them. Isabel knew their journey was far from over. There would be struggles. There would be tests. But for the first time since the betrayal, she also knew one thing with certainty. They would face it together. The reconciliation wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, steady, woven into everyday moments. Marcus waking early to feed the baby so Isabel could sleep. Isabel reaching for his hand at dinner without hesitation. Laughter slowly returning to their home. The millionaire who thought his affair was a secret had been stripped of pride, stripped of certainty, stripped of control. And in losing everything, he had finally found what mattered most.